Okay, and I would like to introduce Mary McCarthy, Connecticut T2 Center's Program Director. Welcome, Mary, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Complete Streets Spotlight. Today, we're presenting the third in our series. We have Renee Wallace and Jason Kaufman from the town of Greenwich, who are going to share with us today their experience with their Greenwich Avenue project and some really creative ways that they engage their community and got some great feedback. So I will take myself off, and Renee, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, we'll get started.
Okay, everyone, let me just make sure everyone can see the screen. I believe everyone can see it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's presentation by the T2 Center. As part of the Complete Street Spotlight series, Town of Greenwich Department of Public Works will discuss how being flexible in complete street projects and incorporating different types of outreach methods can help a team create and execute a successful project. Today, we'll be discussing different components of this project, which includes the history, a shift in the project, completing a complete streets design, outreach methods, and moving forward. There are 3 learning objectives from this presentation we want participants to leave with, which include learning about creative outreach methods utilized in this project, hear about this project's success with flexibility in design and scope to improve mobility and safety on Greenwich Avenue, and discuss complete streets methods that are incorporated in this project. Today, I'm going to just mention our speakers really quickly. So first we have Jason Kaufman. He is our Senior Civil Engineer for the Town of Greenwich Department of Public Works and is the project manager, along with myself. My name is Renee Wallace, and I am the Communications Specialist for the Department of Public Works. We are now going to conduct a little poll. Mary, if you could take it away. So if everyone can just quickly answer these quick questions about what strategies you might use in your organization to utilize and conduct public outreach for major capital projects. It's multiple choice.
Feel free to select as many as apply to you.
Fantastic. Just going to wait a few more seconds to let people put their answers in. All righty. I think we've got our answers, so I'm going to end the polling and I will share the results really quickly. So I just want to make sure, can everyone see it? I think so. So it seems that the biggest one is 1 or 2 large public meetings. Then we have several small stakeholder meetings. Social media is being utilized. Good to see. Online surveys, in-person surveys, engagement with the press, their town website, design charrettes, permit public hearing process, example, wetlands, Board of Selectmen, and assistance from elected officials. Okay, fantastic. So we're going to talk about some of our methods today and show what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, and maybe some takeaways that you can use for your next project.
Just want to jump in quickly. Thanks for having us here today. We, like many of you, utilize 1 or 2 large public meetings on most of our projects. We decided, based on experience and what we've faced in the past, to try a different approach here. So some of these elements you see here, we've utilized all of these on this project.
Fantastic. I'm just going to go to the next slide. So first, we're going to discuss the background information of Greenwich Avenue Streetscape Project. So about Greenwich Avenue, it's an iconic 0.7 mile long corridor that runs north and south between US Route 1 and Railroad Avenue. The street is the premier shopping destination and dining hub and social scene in the heart of central Greenwich. As you can see, it's a little drone footage that our very own Jim Michael has done. So we're going to also talk about drone footage today. So here's a little map to show you where Greenwich is located, the town, but also where Greenwich Avenue is in the little blue square. And this is to show you that it's kind of sandwiched between Route 1 and I-95. So there are a lot of cars and people in this area. And then we're going to now talk about what initiated the Greenwich Avenue Streetscape project. Now that everyone has the background information, we can move forward. Reasons for the project. We needed to repave Greenwich Avenue. So our engineering division looked into improvements that can make any good changes before paving the road. It doesn't make sense to do it after, rip up the entire road, things like that. Public need, our engineering team, again, they looked at the public need and analyzed approximately 40 studies on Greenwich Avenue to assess what type of improvements should be made. And another important component is that it's a focal point of our town. It's our main business district. There's 29 eateries, 76 retail stores, and numerous other services that many visitors and residents come to Greenwich Avenue for. About this project. At first, this project featured streetscape improvements to the entire corridor. Oh my gosh, I'm actually planning for the other slide, but this is just Greenwich Avenue has been long studied for opportunities and to improve streetscape for retail environment and pedestrian experience. With safety, accessibility, and aesthetics in mind, this project was created to revitalize Greenwich Avenue to design key safety measures for everyone, including pedestrians, people with disabilities, bicyclists, motorists, and baby carriage users. And the project featured 5 proposed designs and intersections. Now I have the map, and it'll show you what it looks like. This is the original plan. At first, there were 5 different streetscape improvements to the entire corridor. Now this is the revised project. Change in plans. So due to the complexity of the project, the importance of the corridor, and the number of stakeholders, it was determined that it may be best to create smaller projects. In addition, there was a desire to provide a trial location. Our Department of Public Works was sensitive to the businesses during the shutdowns due to the pandemic, and additional effects to the major construction in the corridor would affect the business's livelihood. This is our revised project. This is a rendering right here. So Department of Public Works took a closer look at Greenwich Avenue and Elm Street intersection with a particular focus on pedestrian safety improvements, creating new green space and building a sense of place. The design and outreach approval process was crucial in components in the revised project. By working on just one intersection, the public could understand the benefits of complete streets and design, and we can increase public buy-in by them actually experiencing it and seeing it for themselves instead of doing an entire corridor at once and getting overwhelmed and things like that. So we can incorporate the other intersection as time goes on, hence why we revised the project. This is just a project timeline of how it's now the Greenwich Avenue and Elm Street intersection improvement project. So the preliminary design, as you could see, started in January 2020. Then you had the final design, community outreach, local approvals, funding released, construction, and our ribbon cutting ceremony. A lot of different components in here, and we're gonna talk about them more throughout the thing, but this is just our timeline.
Renee, if you could just hold on this slide for 1 sec.
Of course.
So you see here the preliminary design for Elm Street intersection began in January 2020. Between 2008 and 2020 is when Renee was talking about the initial project being the entire corridor. What spurred that was there were several reports, as Renee mentioned, up to 40 that talks about parking, streetscape, safety, etc. And we had many initial planning meetings with other town departments, highway, planning and zoning, some other small groups. And the original approach was going to be to kind of rip up the entire avenue, potentially do like a new utility corridor, and look at safety improvements to do while completing that project. Between 2018 and 2020, a lot changes in a 2-year period. So for some of those reasons that Renee mentioned, we felt it was better suited to do one intersection rather than the entire corridor. It was really based on feedback we got from business owners and stakeholders that there really wouldn't be an appetite for an entire street shutdown. And we also wanted to be sensitive to businesses' livelihoods and success, especially during the shutdowns and whatnot. So I just wanted to provide a little more information on why we changed up things a little bit.
Thank you for sharing that, Jason. I appreciate that. So I'm also going to just share a little traffic statistics to show how many vehicles and pedestrians go through this intersection and really the need for this project. As you could see, the average daily vehicular traffic could be 7,600 vehicles per day. That's a lot. And pedestrians alone, Saturday midday peak, you can have 780 pedestrians. So you almost have within the midday peak for vehicles and the midday peak for pedestrians, it's a very similar number, and that's a lot. And we wanted to have these complete streets pedestrian safety designs implemented to ensure safer streets for pedestrians and vehicles. And here are specific improvements that were made at Greenwich Avenue and Elm Street intersection. Jason can speak more about these improvements as he is the project manager for this. Jason, is there anything you want to add specifically about the bump outs? I'm going to have a slide about the complete streets, but the crosswalks, anything here?
Yeah, of course. So this is a photo of the completed project. And originally, this intersection was a massive sea of asphalt and concrete. The curb lines were set back to where the parking spaces were. The crossings were twice as long as this. And this graphic just highlights some of the elements of the project. With lighting, we moved the lighting closer to the roadway. We reused existing light poles and foundations and worked with the private electric company to have everything moved. The bump outs gave us an ability to reduce impervious surfaces. So we took out all the asphalt, there was actually concrete road base underneath. We took it all out to make sure that it's permeable. And we put in several thousand new square feet of landscaping and pervious areas. We also added some additional site furnishings. You see a bench here at the bottom right. You also see, it's hard to tell, but right next to the bench on both sides of the road, there's an open space. And we put that in as an area for wheelchairs to sit next to the bench. We actually put up a little plaque that has the wheelchair sign, just to give more available space for people with disabilities. We did the decorative crosswalks, which is an imprinted type material that gets laid and heated on top of new asphalt. What else do we have here? Wayfinding. Right now, it's just pointing to the street sign, but we talk a little later. We look at the website. We are looking to do an entire corridor wayfinding. We looked at parking signs and just signs that direct you around the area, and found that there's a lot of inconsistencies between signs and not really like a nice theme going on, just very plain kind of regulatory type signs. So we're going to be inputting wayfinding as well. I think that hits on everything, at least broadly for now.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. And here are what Jason just talked about, but here are some complete street highlights. The two main ones are the bump outs and the raised intersection. The bump outs reduce the pedestrians' crossing time and distance on Greenwich Avenue by 40%, because as you can see from the previous picture and from the second one here, you have less time to cross because it bumps out. But the raised intersection improves visibility between pedestrians and motorists while slowing down the speed of vehicles as they proceed through the busy intersection. So those are our two complete street highlights.
Just one, sorry, one more thing, Renee. On the raised intersection, it's hard to see from an aerial, but basically what we did is from the stop bars. So there's three approaches, east, west, and north. It's a one-way road going south. From the stop bar to the crosswalk, we have about a 5 to 6 inch rise. And what that does is it creates like a tabletop for the intersection, and it elevates the pedestrians, as Renee said, and also, removes the necessity for pedestrians and people with strollers and carriages to go down and up and down and up. So.
Thank you. Wait, so sorry about that. These are additional project highlights. They feature decorative crosswalks, planting beds, relocated lighting, which Jason has mentioned, lining of drainage and sanitary sewer lines, reduction of impervious surface areas with the plants, and instead of having asphalt and concrete, replace sidewalks, and new bike racks and benches. Anything else you'd like to add here, Jason? You're on mute.
No, just that we, with the elevated intersection, we did have to add a few catch basins on the north side for water, for runoff that's coming down the avenue. We obviously don't want it to get trapped there. So we did add a few catch basins.
Jason, there is a question in the chat about handling drainage improvements with the bump outs. They want to know, are the landscape areas depressed as stormwater quality areas?
Sure. Yeah, we considered that. We did not. We actually have them elevated. You could kind of see at the bottom right of this picture, we have like a double curb. So you have the granite curb along the street and then another 6 inch curb. So it's elevated. There's a lot of basements in this area. So we didn't really want to introduce infiltration or under drains. We felt that the benefit of really just removing impervious with replacing with landscaping would add a good benefit without having those concerns about groundwater and infiltration. Hope that answers the question.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Now we are going to go into drone usage, something that our department has been increasingly using, and it's been used for both design and promotional purposes.
Sorry, can you go? Sorry, Rena, can you just go back one more? I see some questions in here about bike racks and bicycle access. I forgot to mention before, at the north side of the intersection, next to the small little landscapes, I don't know if you could see my mouse, probably not, but you could see we have 2 spots for bike racks right adjacent to the first space. And those are just the 2 bike U-shaped bike rack. I see someone's asking for a picture. We'll try and get that maybe for the end. I see another question about signalized intersection. This is a 3-way all-way stop, being that it's a 1-way road. The 4th approach is exiting the intersection. And it was the same before and after.
Great. And this is the drone usage right here. So we're going to show you a little video here. Our team worked with the fire department to ensure that the fire trucks would be able to turn and wouldn't be impacted by the new turning radius caused by the bump outs. And I'm going to play it right now so you can see the fire truck. It comes up to the stop. And then what they did was they tested to see how an emergency vehicle, especially of this size, would be able to turn.
And it's interesting. You could see the fire truck went into the opposite lane. It isn't a lane that's going in the opposite direction, so that's beneficial. But also, you could see he was kind of a few feet away from the curb line, probably trying to be careful. So we have followed up with the fire department after the project, and they are very happy with the work, and they don't really have any concerns about the turning movements.
Great. So this is an example of how we used technology and worked with local, other local departments to ensure that the project actually improves and works for everybody. And then this is something we really wanted to talk about with everyone is our changed approach of outreach. Prior to this, a lot of our meetings were 1 to 2 large public meetings for the stakeholders, whether residents, those who own businesses, those who were tenants, things like that. And for this one exactly, we had 16 meetings with over 12 different groups. And while that may seem a lot, and every project is different and every need is different, we found that these smaller informational meetings were able to have different voices come out and concerns, and that in larger groups, people might just have the few opposition be the loudest and strongest voices, and you see this angry mob-like mentality. So we found success in this and getting more public buy-in, more public positivity about it, and really getting more feedback in different examples. And so here you could see this was from our ribbon cutting, but we worked very closely with the First Selectmen's Disability Advocacy Committee, and they were wonderful with explaining, what concerns they had. We also worked with the fire department, the police department, the tree conservancy, the tree warden, things like that, to know what everyone's needs, requirements were. And it was really a way to get the project to move along and for everyone to feel like they had their piece in this project and that they were involved with it. Jason, do you have any additional comments before I switch to the next slide?
No, I mean, we just want to also highlight, we had meetings with the, property owners and tenants that are in the four corners of the intersection. Yeah, and we went to great lengths to make sure we were getting out there to try and reach more people than we have in the past. We tend to get the same people at all of our meetings. And you guys probably know, tends to be the negative views. So this was a good way to get everyone involved, and I think we got good feedback on how we approach this.
Thanks, Jason. Now we're gonna, discuss that the intersection's been completed and how we're gonna move forward. How do we increase that public buy-in, and how are we going to improve the entire corridor? And we're gonna share that all with you now, and just moving forward and kind of where we are right now. So the first thing we did was we promoted the new intersection, the Elm Street Greenwich Avenue intersection. We wanted to get excitement from the finished project. So this was last July. We hosted a ribbon cutting. We had our first selectman, who you could see pictured here. We had our different construction teams that were involved with it. We had our project manager, who you could see right there. We had our deputy commissioner, who's also photographed, and really our goal was to get everyone excited, involved, invite the press. And what you could see here, and this will be included for everyone after the presentation, is a takeaway sheet that we gave to everyone who attended. We had about 30 attendees, including press, and they can really know about all the highlights, understanding complete streets, since that's not someone, the average person not in the industry might not understand it, know the importance of it, along with our invitation to make it feel special, and that there's a reason why we're taking time out of our important days to really recognize it. The next step after that was educating the public about the improvements that were made and soliciting feedback. That feedback is from the intersection we made, and also the entire corridor of future improved projects. In order to do this, we decided to do creative alternatives, such as creating an interactive website to really reach the masses, especially, during this pandemic, and people aren't always comfortable going out, and really getting everyone involved. And we also went during our sidewalk sale in July, a very big event on Greenwich Avenue, and we had every corner of this intersection manned by people, and we asked them questions about what they thought about the intersection. And then in addition to that, we had a table with presentation with the boards and everything, explaining what is the future of Greenwich going to look like? And having those pictures, we had t-shirts, we had these cards, as you could see right there. And on the back, it has a QR code that goes right to our website. So really trying to educate people about what happened in this intersection, what we want to do for future, and getting feedback for both what's been done and what we want to be done. So that was a key part. Is there anything else, since Jason, you were such an intricate part of this, that you would like to add?
First, I just want to throw a shout out. I thought I saw Jason's name on the registration, but I don't see him here. On the left is Jason Williams, and on the right is Liz Esposito. They're from SLR International, formerly Malone McBroom, and they've been instrumental in creating graphics, getting the website together, doing the renderings, and really assisting us with a lot of the outreach and graphic design for this project.
And now we're going to go a little bit into the communication strategy. This is really, I started working for the town of Greenwich in June and got involved with the project at that point. And I bring my expertise and my background in communications, and I'm just going to share with you things that we've done and maybe you can take away and utilize in your future projects. And you don't need to have particularly a background or expertise, but you could utilize some of our strategies for your own projects in the future. So the first thing is public relations. I know everyone here might be from an engineering, public works, different backgrounds, but I wanted to give a little bit of an explanation of what it is. So according to the Public Relations Society of America, which is really the founding, the cornerstone for public relations for us today, and really what their statements are, but they say public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. And we created a public relations campaign, which was created and included crafting press releases, pitching to journalists for media placements. We also were included in the First Selectman's weekly newsletter. So here on the left here, you could see multiple different articles. There were much more than this, but these are a few clipping examples of digital and paper articles that were covered about this, whether it was the ribbon cutting, whether it was our website getting feedback, different things that were happening, getting that in the press so people understand it, getting more information and pushing about the website. It's really important. And I think really it's a free tool to reach out to your journalists and just share with them, this is what's happening, here it is. You don't have to pay for advertising placements or anything like that. It does take a little bit extra time, but building those relationships with your local media can be very beneficial, and especially in a community like this where, these papers have been in forever and people listen to them and want to know what's going on in their community. Another key thing that I thought was important was key messaging. And there's a lot of, we found in the past, and what I've seen is that could be misinformation about projects and misunderstanding. And so in order to control the narrative, we want to have these key messages that go out, whether it's in the press releases, whether it's on social media, whether you're talking to the public about it, to make everyone understand what's going on exactly. So, for us, that you want to go back to, why are we doing this project and how will it improve the community? We want to reinforce the benefits of it. So some examples for us was accessibility for those with disabilities, highlight how it increases pedestrian safety, reinforce that the project revitalizes Greenwich Avenue. This is a financial center for us. It's a cultural identity for the town, and it's very important. And on top of that, which is something I started to do and I'd like to do moving forward, is really get those involved in and feel like they can be part of the process, which kind of ties in with our small meetings and trying to meet with everyone and understand what everyone's needs is. It's your avenue. Give us your feedback, tell us on the website, answer our survey, and cultivate this public excitement, and get everyone involved. And on the right here is just an example of a press release that we put out for when the website was launched. So this is just something I did. No, you don't have to always be this, extravagant if you don't have the time or the person for it, but just getting those key ideas out and everyone is on the same page about what you're sharing. Social media, I saw in the beginning in the poll, people had been using social media, which is great. I feel like most of us are on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and it's a free tool. It's a free thing to use. We personally have our own Department of Public Works' account for the town of Greenwich, but a lot of towns have their own, and you can have the town share your information. So for us, we created our own graphics, and we also worked with local social media accounts and organizations to repost. So for example, Greenwich Moms, Greenwich Chamber of Commerce, the town itself, their personal account, their their public account. And so I would just draft copy, I would send it to them, I'd send them the graphics, and I would just keep it going. And there's information about how a person needs to see the message multiple times. So if they see an article, if they see it on social media, if they hear someone talking about it, it just reinforces what you're doing and makes them understand it and remember it more. So it's just one more way to get people to understand. And then in the link in our bio for Instagram, we included the website that we developed. There were also additional outreach methods we have on our website, which I know a lot of towns and municipalities have Civic Plus. We created a banner on the top, which points out to our website. We linked the interactive website right there. It was prominent on both our webpage and the town's main webpage. We had a graphic, It's Your Avenue. That's just an example of something we had social media. And earlier, as I mentioned, was the business cards we handed out on Greenwich Avenue. They also were in the first selectman's and still are in the first selectman's office, the front of Public Works and Planning and Zoning for people to grab and also take the QR code. We also displayed downstairs in our main floor, we have display cases, information about the project and things like that. So people can pass by, scan the QR code, read about it, see images, and just one more way to reach the masses. And right here is our website. So we just want to quickly show you the website and what we've been working on and some inspiration for it. So I'm just going to go right to it. It's loading. Okay, perfect. Can everyone see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure. So this is our website. And so essentially you scroll down and we have all the proposed intersections. This one is our completed one that's in gold. And you can click on it. You can scroll and see what was originally there, or this was during construction with the final project, the final product, and you can view and provide the feedback. So like earlier, we showed these different key points. You can highlight it and see what is going on with each one and learn, well, what does each of these mean and what are these improvements? And then you can provide your very own feedback and that will go to us. If I go back to the menu quickly, you can go down and we can do a different intersection. So for example, if I do the Havemeyer Place and Arch Street intersection, my computer's a little slow. It doesn't seem to be loading. Let's see if it does. There we go. The left is the original. The right is the proposed changes. And when you use the slider right here, you can see what it looks like with the aerial, and then you could see what the rendering would look like. From there, you can provide your feedback. It's a great tool that you can have and for people to learn and really solicit that feedback that you really want. There's other things here like wayfinding, pedestrian signage. There's a lot going on, but I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of an idea of what we're working on. We could share this in the comments of this discussion here on Zoom, but let me go back to the presentation. And here we are back on the presentation. And we just wanted to share with you also the website and the survey statistics we received so far. So when we were on Elm Street, which was only for a day, we had 187 responses collected. And then on Greenwich Avenue Streetscape website, we had 2,905 visits between 7/8/21 and 9/22/21. and approximately 100 comments per intersection. So this is all stuff that we can take and, Jason can use for his future intersections into consideration for changes and things like that. Is there anything you would like to add here, Jason? Okay.
No,
great.
I think this just illustrates, that all the effort that we put in to do the website and to do the surveys, it was well spent time. We got a lot of responses, we got a lot of good comments, probably from people that we never would have heard from otherwise. So it definitely, it seems daunting, but it is worth it in the end.
Yes, thank you so much. And now we're going to go into the questions portion, and I'm just going to show you a little drone video going down our new intersection right here. And we're happy to answer any questions between Jason and I.
Okay, thank you so much. We did have a couple of questions come through the chat, so we'll take those one by one. The first one is, when is it best to get feedback from stakeholders? Before or after final design, concept phase? Can you talk a little bit about when you found it to be best?
Yeah, we did. So one of the actually interesting aspects of this is Renee, who's our departments for the whole department of public works. She's our communication specialist. She started in May or April of this year?
I started in June.
June of this year. So, there were several years of this project that we didn't have a communication specialist. And so from my perspective, wow, what a great addition to our team. A lot of us are engineers. We're not, the best with public speaking or presenting or even really just seeing something from another perspective. And having her really gives us a great perspective, and someone that really knows, studied it, has a degree in communication, and how to best and effectively communicate with the public. So, forgot what. Now I lost my train of thought. The question was.
The question was essentially, when should
Sorry.
Yes. So when should we? So we were in preliminary and design starting in January.
Here.
And we didn't finalize the design until after we met with all the stakeholders. So really, you hear this kind of buzzword a lot, early and often. So, start your outreach early. Make sure it's continuous, make sure it's ongoing, make sure it's often, and make sure that you're hitting, all the avenues, whether it's business owners or, your emergency services, your government officials, other departments that you may be affecting, like in our case, Parks and Rec with landscape maintenance, parking services with loading zones and parking meters, and highway with plowing and maintaining the streets. So yeah, just.
And to add with Jason, I think, the earlier the better, because also with, your image as public works or whatever division or department you're in, having that clear communication with the public, knowing that you're transparent and you're sharing with them and being that source of information and kind of minimizing misinformation really helps. So share it early on and make them excited and part of it. And you don't have to overshare or give every fact or statistics, but make them part of the process and share it. And I find that to be a very successful tool.
Great.
So I just want to, I see a question here about bike lanes and sharing of the travel lanes. Great question. Complete Streets is when you're designing to all road users, not just, drivers, also pedestrians and cyclists. What we found on Greenwich Avenue is that it kind of functions almost like a parking lot. You have people that are trying to get to restaurants and shops. You also have on-street parking where people are backing up into the roadway. The volumes are very high, the speeds are very low. we made a decision that we would put bike racks at the cross streets, thinking that, and talking with cyclists around the area, that they're more comfortable getting to Greenwich Avenue via one of the side streets rather than biking down the avenue. You have a pretty big steep grade also going down the avenue. So the feedback we got was most cyclists don't really feel that comfortable going down the avenue. So we didn't put bike lanes in. If we wanted to put bike lanes in, we probably would have had to take out a significant amount of parking, which in those 40 studies, I think 90% of it was about parking. And there's still discussions about parking. And there's a part of our wayfinding objective is to improve the perception that there's no parking. We got lots of parking lots in central Greenwich. Planning and zoning did analysis a couple of years ago and found there's plenty of capacity. There's just a perception that there's not enough. And I think people that are visiting the area that aren't accustomed, Greenwich Avenue attracts shoppers from, regional areas, New York even. So people that aren't accustomed to downtown Greenwich, I think they have a hard time trying to find the parking lots. And that's what one of our goals of the wayfinding is to improve.
Okay. To follow up on that, Jason, we had another question about bikes. How were bicycles considered? How did you decide to focus more on pedestrians? Like, what kind of surveys and what kind of groups did you gather together to discuss bicycle usage?
Yeah, just what I kind of touched on here. One of the select persons at the time was the leader of a local bicycle group. So that came up, when we were presenting to Board of Selectmen to get approval for, in Greenwich, what's called a municipal improvement, which is kind of our P&Z stamp of approval for like a major intersection redesign. It was just really just talking to the bicycle groups, talking to people we know that are cyclists. And, while the focus was on pedestrians, we did want to make sure we added bike racks along the avenue. Really the feedback we got was there's just not enough bike racks, and people just want more places to park their bikes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question that came in through the chat was regarding large vehicle deliveries. And just a note to our participants, if you have questions, you can continue to enter them into the chat and we'll address them. But there also will be a time for you to unmute yourselves and ask if you want to do so verbally. But this question regarding large vehicle deliveries, how did you consider that, accommodate that? Was that an issue, something that came up?
Sure, yeah. So Renee, if you could go to the aerial view, please.
Of course. Let me find it for you. Is it this one?
Yep, perfect. Okay, so at the northwest corner, you see two cars. There's a white car and a black car right after you turn onto West Elm Street. That used to be a loading zone. The first two spots by the red awnings on West Elm Street. That was a loading zone. But as you can imagine, this bump out didn't exist originally. So delivery trucks will pull right in and then drive right out. We felt that because of the bump out being there, it wasn't not the greatest to have delivery trucks trying to parallel park basically into this area. So originally we were going to shift it down to the end further west where this white kind of truck is located, there is no bump out. So the delivery truck could pull straight up and then back into the spot. We did have some pushback from the owner of this building, which has a restaurant there. So we worked with them back and forth, and we ended up actually moving the loading zone to East Elm Street, where this blue car is parked right now. We took those two spots there and made that into a loading zone. So we wanted to still keep it close to the intersection, but not have it a hindrance because of the bump out.
Okay, all right, thank you. Another question that we have is, can you talk a little bit about how you're going to, translate what you've learned from this experience into future projects, and how you're going to continue on with the corridor, and if there's lessons learned, or if there's things you're going to do differently, design and communication wise?
Yes, definitely. I could talk about design. Yes, a couple of lessons learned. First is the handicap or ADA accessible parking spaces. So you could see on the south side of the intersection, we have one on either side. On the east side of the intersection, the space has its loading zone area on the passenger side. Actually, they both are on the passenger side, but the one on the east side has a parking space next to it, whereas the one on the west side has a curb right next to it. And what we heard from some of the people in the community, accessible community, is that while the regulations call for 8 feet wide access aisle, some people have vans that have ramps that are exactly 8 feet. So the person pulls into that spot, pulls out their ramp, and now it goes right to a curb. So a lot of times we design to regulations, but they may not be the most practical. So maybe in some of our other designs, we're looking to incorporate, if there's a curb adjacent to this aisle, maybe either giving a couple of extra feet of space, or even just putting a landing pad at the top of the curb in addition to the ramp from the parking space, so that if someone does have this type of ramp, they can just go right to the top of the curb. That's one. The other is being in a downtown area, you get businesses that like to put out flowers and pots and things that help make their business more beautiful. And in one case where we had narrowed the sidewalk with a landscaped area, after the business put out some pots, there was some feedback we got about narrowed sidewalks. We were trying to, at that point, maintain 7 or 7.5 feet. We are trying now with our other designs to maintain 8 or 8.5 feet, just for double passage and to account for if any businesses do put out pots or whatnot. Otherwise, with communication, just continuing and improving on the consistency and frequency of communication and early communication. There's a lot of moving parts here with lights and parking and highway and paving and drainage. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Renee, about outreach.
Yes, I think since I started with this project, I came here in June, and we were already finishing at that point. Learning moving forward is anticipating what the public and stakeholders will think, and thinking of what is they're going to be their opinions and their thoughts, or what can be misunderstood. And I think, for example, people might not fully understand the importance of bump outs, or they see it as, this is a pretty, streetscapes are pretty, and it's really just to make it look nicer, Greenwich Avenue. And there's a big safety component to this, and it's a traffic calming measure, and it's also to increase accessibility for those with disabilities. And so I think anticipating what might be misunderstood, and you won't always know that, but knowing what your key points are on the project and really making those messages clear, and also anticipating what that might be, or what people might misunderstand ahead of time to combat that, is really what I think moving forward would be for me.
Awesome. Thank
Also,
you.
just want to add one thing. The more that we as a community do these projects, the more people who live in Connecticut will be familiar with that. One of the comments we kept getting early on, and when this was under construction, is this is an absurd concept. We've never seen this done anywhere. This is not industry standard. Whereas we all know that this type of design, bump outs, pedestrian friendly, it's done all over the country. So the more we do it in our areas of Connecticut and work together, the people will be more accustomed to it. I see a question here about, was there any talk of outdoor dining on the sidewalk? Yes. A big aspect of the corridor during the pandemic was the first ever implementation really of outdoor dining in Greenwich. There were some small usages on the sidewalk. We actually, Renee, there's a photo that's in here that shows one of the nodes. I think it might have been at the beginning.
Jason, it's at the beginning. It's the one that just shows what the avenue looks like.
Here we go. Okay, so this is a great picture. This is the lower avenue, almost at the very end. The last intersection we're looking at is this one here, which is Fawcett and Grigg. As you can see, there is a bump out design that was incorporated probably 15 years ago. And you can see it's kind of deteriorated. Crosswalks are faded. They used a colorized concrete that didn't, bode well long term. But you could see we have what we're calling nodes of outdoor dining. And one of the tasks we're working on now is on the future intersections, and this being one of them, how we can potentially incorporate maybe like a little patio area instead of doing such a large landscaped island, maybe providing a little area for restaurants that are there to have outdoor dining. We've also took an inventory of all the restaurants on Greenwich Avenue to see, even if they aren't currently using outdoor dining, if they were to use, like what the potential build out of outdoor dining is, and kind of making sure that we're looking at spots where we could provide maybe a little patio or keeping those parking spaces. It's tough at the corners because we're trying to do bump outs, but really keeping that in mind, because we know in Greenwich there's a desire to continue this long term. So.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the group? And Jim, Michael, since we have you with us, is there anything else you'd like to share with the participants?
No, I think just Jason and Renee have been great with this project. I think they've handled this. I would, for those people that are in director positions and looking at a lot of this, don't be intimidated by how much this is. We did have a pretty healthy budget that has been dedicated to this. We know that this isn't necessarily something that could be implemented for every single intersection out there. That there is a cost to this, but with the importance of this, like like this exact slide here, right, talks about, this is like the iconic Main Street USA of Greenwich. And so it's, some people periodically compare it to Rodeo Drive or Fifth Avenue in New York. So that's what we were dealing with here. And we knew that we would need to have a fairly extensive outreach program. We do know that we're trying to utilize some of the lessons learned on this with other locations that we know we don't have quite the budget for. So know that you can scale this down. You can utilize it in other areas. Use your lessons learned here to do that. And if anybody does have any questions, always don't be afraid to reach out to Mary, reach out to Jason, reach out to Renee, myself, any of us. We're happy to help answer that stuff. That's what I really see these sessions for. What I see the T2 Center doing is not just educating all of us, but making us, connecting all of us across the state here to better serve the community.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. If we don't have any other questions, I do have just a couple of announcements. First of all, go ahead. Yes, Jason.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one thing. First, I just want to thank Mary and the T2 Center for having us today. It's always great to work with you guys. You guys do a really good job. As for, what was I going to say? That's it. I was going to say something else, but I forgot.
Okay, well, you think about it, and I'll make my announcements. So a couple of things, Dahlia, I saw your question regarding getting the slides. We will be sharing that with the group. And that actually leads me to an announcement. As part of this project, we have developed a website on our webpage on our website that is specifically for sharing Complete Streets information. So for those of you who joined us last October for our virtual information exchange, it is that same website, but what we were able to do is upload all 3 presentations, the recordings of each of the spotlights so far, as well as copies of their presentations and any additional resources that the presenters were able to share in support of their messaging. So you'll see that link in our in the chat. Also, just an announcement that we are going to be holding 3 more of these, at least, in 2022, in the early part of the year. And I am very interested in getting some feedback. So I have just a little bit of a question for you. As we're gathering input for 2022, I would like just everybody could take a minute. I'm going to launch this poll, and if you could just let me know what types of projects you'd like to see highlighted in our 2022 spotlights. Go ahead and check as many as you'd like, and if there's something specific, a particular project or a treatment that you don't see listed here, just choose other and go ahead and add that into the chat, because we are, we're really soliciting feedback and input on what you want us to share with you so you can learn and maybe benefit from other people's experiences. I do want to thank Jason and Renee for their time. It's been a pleasure working with you. Such a great project. The incorporation of drones and that bird's eye view that you're able to get, I thought was really interesting. And the use of social media and just getting out there with the people and walking the street with folks to try and find out what their needs were. I really appreciate that perspective as well. And some might even say at this point, innovative, that we get to get out with each other and aren't trying to do everything virtually. Yes, I love that, Delia, how to incorporate outdoor dining, because that is something I like to call a silver lining of COVID. Really, encouraged towns to think outside the box in how to, expand the capacity of their restaurants and their ability to bring folks downtown. So thank you very much for that one. So yeah, please continue to put your ideas in the chat. Jason, you did remember what you wanted to say?
Yes, yeah, cost. So normally we get a lot of questions about how much things cost. We do have some of that information. So if you are curious about how much the website costs or how much, the streetscape in general costs, give us a shout and we'll be more than happy to share. And then also I see about the outdoor dining. We're also working on a decorative concrete barrier. You could see in these photos, we use Jersey barriers this past year, but we're looking to purchase a set of nice decorative barriers, and we've worked with SLR on a structural design of those barriers, and we're currently working with some vendors to find out who would be the best one to make those for us. So
Great.
when we have that information, we could also share that as well.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. I see some other suggestions here, and we'll get those noted and hopefully offer some more interesting spotlights in the coming year. If you think of anything afterwards, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach out to me or Donna or Regina, and we're happy to take your ideas and see what we can do to get those projects out to you and share that information. So thank you all very much. I wish a happy and healthy holiday season to all of you. And thank you for your time today.
Thanks everyone for participating.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day.